How's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac, and I'm here with a video on Killer Bean because I saw a video on Instagram, and it was about Killer Bean, and it reminded me, like, oh yeah, this movie exists. I forgot about this movie. And before if I even talk about it, I want to tell you all, watch the movie. Like, please just watch the movie. I'm not even saying it like because it's a masterpiece. I'm saying it because it's just really good. It's really good. I'm not gonna do a spoiler section or a spoiler-free section whatsoever because this isn't a review. This is literally me just talking about this movie because of how good it is. But it's gonna sound like a review from how much I praise it. It's crazy. So just go watch the movie. It's literally free on YouTube, no less. It's an hour and 30, basically around there, like an hour and 24 minutes. So it's a little bit of a long watch, but compared to other movies, it's short. The animation is great. The characters are funny. The action is amazing. It's fire. It's literally so fire. Go give it a watch, please. It's awesome. But yeah, spoilers ahead. Be ready for that. So this movie, I want to give context to it. I actually watched this movie like 5 years ago, back in 2018. Well, yeah, around there, 2018, 2019. And it was back like sophomore year for me in high school. So I was just like, oh shoot, I saw that Moist Critical watch this movie. I didn't watch them at that point. It was just like, oh, this is one of the videos that keeps getting recommended to me. So I gave it a look, and I saw the movie. I was like, oh shoot, this looks cool. This looks cool. So I went to go watch the movie myself, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. But this is before I started my YouTube channel, or at least I started it back up. So I didn't talk about movies and stuff like that. But I wanted to rewatch it so I could see it again and see if, oh, do I like it as much as I did before, and would I even make a video on it type stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely making a video on it, which is right now. So Killer Bean, right? Let me just give some context. Killer Bean is a movie made by Jeff Liu. I think he made it by himself, or they made it by themselves. And this movie actually was just like 13 years in the making before the movie came out. So this was a long project. It's been in the works. And so, hear me. After it was released, now as of this recording, it has 46 million views on YouTube. Like, it was a success. It was a wholehearted success. It has a mobile game now, a cult following. It did really good. It did really good. Well, that's my dog under the door. But the movie itself is basically Killer Bean is a well, not a gun for hire or an assassin. He's a part of the shadow agency, right? And I'll get to them in a second. But the movie starts with Killer Bean going to a party in one of these warehouses that is run by the Cappuccino gang, and he goes there allegedly because the music is too loud and he's trying to get sleep, but in reality, it's because of the fact that he's going after or excuse me, Cappuccino, a mob boss basically. He's a weapons dealer, and he goes there and he's like, "Yo, turn the music down. I'm trying to sleep," and they're like, "No." So they turned it up even more, and he shows up and he kills everybody there. He kills every single person in that room, and now the attention's on Killer Bean because one of the people in that room, the DJ, was Cappuccino's nephew. So the news is looking at Killer Bean. They don't know who he is. Cappuccino's looking at Killer Bean because his nephew is dead because of him. He doesn't know who he is. So everybody's gunning after Killer Bean, law enforcement and the underground. And Killer Bean, he works for the Shadow Agency, the group that trained him and is sending him on missions to rid the world of filth, basically. Or at least that's why he's doing it. The Shadow Agency themselves, they're their own being. They're their own separate being. They have their own goals, their own ideals, stuff like that. But Killer Bean and the Shadow Agency have that mutual understanding of like, oh, blah blah blah, this and that. So Killer Bean now is sent to go kill Cappuccino, or at least no, not Cappuccino. He's sent to go kill the Shadow Bean, and he goes to another one of Cappuccino's warehouses, and this is where we see Detective Cromwell, who we actually saw before at the first warehouse after Killer Bean left. So we meet him there, and then we see him again at this warehouse. Killer Bean is set up like this warehouse was cleared out, and Shadow Bean, aka Vegan, is across in another building in a sniper tower, and they have this crazy like action set piece. It's super cool, and they end off in a draw. So Killer Bean leaves. He goes to a bar across the street from the warehouse, and he's just chilling. He's drinking some tequila and tonic. And Cromwell sees this. He goes into the bar and he realizes like, yo, this might be Killer Bean. This might be him. And so he sits next to him and they have this conversation. This really cool, intense conversation of just like, oh, are you Killer Bean? Well, here's the evidence as to why I think you're Killer Bean. And Killer Bean is like, haha, you got me, like on some Walter White type stuff. And they have this crazy standoff where they both have their guns pointed at each other. And then the bartender comes out and he has a shotgun aimed at both of them. And Cromwell concedes and he's like, all right, I'll put my gun down and I'll leave, okay? And he leaves. Then he sees what's it called? A note laying across the street where his car is parked, and he sees what it says, and it's about Shadow Bean. Cromwell doesn't know about the Shadow Agency, and neither do we because this is where we get introduced to it. So he goes to the bar again, but like he's waiting outside, and meanwhile, Killer Bean is just like, oh yo, bartender, can I use the bathroom real quick? I'll be in and out, I promise. So he goes to use the bathroom and he comes back out. This is where my favorite line of the movie comes out. He flushes and he goes to exit the bathroom. He's like, sorry, it was a double flusher. And then the bartender's like, but you only flush once. And Killer Bean just shrugs and leaves the bar. Oh my gosh, that line is so funny. Like it makes no sense, but it's so funny. Oh my gosh. But then Cromwell is waiting for Bean outside of the bar. He's like, "Who was the shadow agency?" And Bean flips him over, disarms him, and he's like, "You're better off not knowing, because even I don't know." And so he gets in his car and he leaves. And Cromwell calls up one of his guys in a forensics lab. Hey, yo, who is the shadow agency? And he's like, they used to be an agency that worked for the government for Beantown. This isn't the U.S. This is just Beantown. Or at the very least, we don't know if it's the U.S. yet. This is just Beantown, whatever. And he's like, they used to work for the government doing hit jobs and all that. Well, not hit jobs, but if diplomacy and military forces didn't work, the shadow agency was deployed. But they were disbanded, or at the very least, they weren't employed by the government anymore. So now we don't know what they are. We don't know what they're doing. But Killer Bean, while he was talking to Cromwell, actually got tipped off to go to a different warehouse where all the weapons are being held, so on and so forth. He goes there, and it's crazy. This is the biggest set piece of the movie, bar none. Putting aside the beginning of the movie, and well, yeah, actually the beginning of the movie and the ending of the movie, this is the biggest set piece, no doubt. So he goes there, and it's just a shootout. All the gang members from Cappuccino's crew show up, and they're just gunning each other down, or trying to gun down Killer Bean, while Killer Bean is just gunning them down, all one by one. It's crazy, crazy fight, awesome choreography, amazing. And Killer Bean gets done with them, and one of the people in Cappuccino's gang was like, "Yo, Vegan, we need help. Send in any reinforcements if possible." And Vegan sends in like kind of like this Black Ops type group that sounds like SEAL Team, or not SEAL Team 6, but kind of like Task Force 141 from Modern Warfare, right? If it's an actual task force, I don't know, but what's it called? They're all British, and they're there like, "Yo, Killer Bean, we're here to kill you, dog." And Killer Bean's like, "All right, cool." And then they start fighting. And they come in like an armored truck, and it's just crazy. They're all beefing, but Killer Bean comes out on top in the end because this man is always like John Wick mixed with like God, bro. He's insane. And he after he's done with them, Vegan and Cappuccino show up, and it's all the goons that Vegan brought versus Killer Bean. Oh, actually, no, not against Killer Bean. Killer Bean actually gets knocked out by Vegan, and then he gets tied up in the warehouse, and he's being interrogated by Cappuccino, and it's just basically like Cappuccino giving his whole story about his nephew and how he wanted to be a DJ and all that, and Killer Bean is just like, yeah, but I don't care. Like, I'm here to kill one guy, and it's not you. I'm here to kill Vegan. And this is the crazy reveal where Killer Bean kills everybody except Cappuccino and Vegan. And what's it called? Killer Bean is just like, yeah, just leave. Dude, I'm not here to kill you. You know, go. And Cappuccino's like, all right, bet. and he Cappuccino looks at Vegan. He's like, "Oh, Vegan, by the way, you're fired." And as soon as he said that, Vegan immediately shot him. And like when I was watching the movie, I was just like, "Yeah, why? Why would you do that? Why would you say you're fired to a trained hitman? Like he has no obligation to protect you now, whatsoever. Why would you say that? You're dumb. You're like that's actually crazy." But now it's just Killer Bean versus Vegan. This isn't much of a fight. It's more like exposition. So we learn more about the Shadow Agency, why Vegan actually left the Shadow Agency, why he was Shadow Bean, how Killer Bean is related to the Shadow Agency, and why he like this mission is actually a suicide mission. That they're sending somebody to kill Killer Bean, and they actually have this crazy dialogue. It's super cool. But Killer Bean kills Vegan, and he's like, the mission isn't done yet. They're going to keep coming. They're not going to stop hunting you, Killer Bean. And now he just has a lot to think about. He's kind of been switched over to the I've been betrayed by the Shadow Agency. So, what's it saying? Cromwell was watching the whole time because he was the one that tipped him off to go to this warehouse, and he called up all the like backup, and now they're all here to detain Killer Bean. And Cromwell and Killer Bean's relationship is actually really cool because he's the only one that can talk him down from killing everybody in this room. So Cromwell is like, "Yo, put the gun down. We'll talk. We'll hash it out. I can protect you." And Killer Bean is like, "No one can protect me. This is the Shadow Agency. I'll think it over. I'll stay one night, but nobody can protect me." So he puts his guns down and he gets arrested. He gets put into the holding cell. And one guy I neglected to mention was Jet Bean, which funnily enough, when I started watching the movie and he showed up, I remembered his name immediately. I knew, yeah, this is Jet Bean, and he's gonna be the final guy in the movie. I remember him because the final fight in the movie is crazy. Oh my gosh! I remember as soon as we see Killer Bean in the holding cell, as soon as we see Jet Bean, I knew like, yeah, this is the final fight in the movie. Like this is how it's gonna end. So we actually see Jet Bean though in the beginning of the movie. Like he's in the east. I don't know what part of the Asia though, but he is in the east. So it's like, oh, cool. But he gets called over by the Shadow Agency. Like, yo, we need you to deal with Killer Bean. And he's like, all right, cool. I mean, I'll be there, but it's gonna take a long time. And it did. It took almost like the entire movie. But when he shows up, he's crazy. He's really crazy. He literally shows up, kills all of the police department that's holding Killer Bean. Cromwell got lucky that he left earlier because he was gonna interrogate Killer Bean in the morning. So he clocked out, and then Jet Bean shows up. So he takes care of all of them, and now he's downstairs in the holding cell looking for Killer Bean. And I gotta give it to this movie, some of the craziest cinematography I've seen because you have, or I don't know if it's inspired or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but man, the scene where Jet Bean was in the holding cell or in around the holding cell area, knocking Killer Bean's gun on the bars. Oh my gosh, that is so cold. Genuinely so cold. It's so fire. Like this movie has a bunch of scenes like that, a bunch of shots where it's just, man, one person made this shot. It's so good, genuinely so good. Like with the Detective Cromwell and Killer Bean, where they both have their guns on the table, and like, oh my gosh, bro, oh man, it's I get whatever. So Jet Bean shows up and he gives Killer Bean his guns because he knows like, yeah, you're gonna need them. I can beat you easily. He's cocky, he's arrogant, you know. And Killer Bean and him start fighting. This is the best fight in the movie, the best scene in the movie, and honestly, just what makes the movie so amazing. This fight is awesome. It's peak. It's genuinely peak. They're just hand to hand combat, barely any talking, just intellect and pure combat prowess. You get to see that Killer Bean is smart. That man has intuition. While Jet Bean is just, he is a combat master. All the martial arts. He knows everything. So it's basically the strong versus the smart. They both have technical ability, but both of them have facets that they are better at. You know, they have their strengths and weaknesses, and we get to see that in full display. It's so cool. Like literally, Jet Bean versus Killer Bean is a 30-70 like matchup in Jet Bean's favor, but Killer Bean wins because of that intuition, and it's so cool. So we have Killer Bean in the final scene beat up, Jet Bean also beat up. They're here, and Jet Bean's ready to end this. He's ready to execute this man with hand-to-hand combat alone, while Killer Bean has his gun aimed at Jet Bean, and Jet Bean can disarm him really easily. It's not that hard. He has fisticuffs that block bullets, so it's not that hard either. But Killer Bean uses his intuition. He throws up a bullet right into the air. He shoots at Jet Bean like crazy fire, and then once the bullet gets low enough, he shoots a bullet at that bullet, and it it hits Jet Bean because it's a ricochet basically. It's literally a ricochet. That bullet that he shot and the bullet that was in midair, the 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 first bullet hit him in his chest, while the second bullet was blocked by his fisticuff because it was a distraction. He got mind like the mind eraser, the mind destroyer. Actually crazy. It is so hard to explain if you don't see it. It's just it's so cool. It's generally so cool. And Jet Bean dies. He tells Killer Bean like it's not over for you. They're gonna keep hunting you. And Killer Bean just leaves the holding cell. He leaves. He goes outside. He sees that everybody is dead, and he takes one of the armored trucks that the police officers had with a bunch of guns, and he just leaves. And that's where the movie ends. And man, this movie is crazy. Like genuinely crazy. I had so much fun watching this movie. Like if I had to rate it, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. But this isn't about the rating. This is just about talking about it. Like in concept, this movie shouldn't exist. But one person with persistence and time made this movie with with the help of others. But at the end of the day, this was his idea, and it's just so cool to think about because it came to fruition, and it paid off in dividends. So many people have seen the Killer Bean movie now, and they know about the IP and just about him. Period. Like Killer Bean is an icon now. It's so cool, genuinely so cool because the animation is great, and the video itself is 4K. I think is what it's called. It's 4K quality. You have the choreography, which is amazing. The dialogue, which could be really campy but funny. It has charm to it. The writing is really good, surprisingly. Like the dialogue between Vegan and Killer Bean, and the dialogue between Killer Bean and Cromwell, like there's some really good, like well written characters in this movie. Like the ones that are important are really well written. Except for like Cappuccino and Jet Bean. Like Jet Bean has no writing because that's what he is. He's a soulless man who's here to do his job. Like it doesn't matter the reason, he will do his job. So he doesn't need writing. And Cappuccino is just a mob boss. He's not really that important. He's only important to the motivations for Vegas. So he's just a mouthpiece, basically. He's a puppet. And everybody else, that's just it. Like there's like five important characters in the movie. That's it, or well, four actually. I think yeah, four. Like besides that, it's just nameless characters, police officers, gangsters, and that's it. Literally just that's it. And NPCs like the bartender. But the people that are important are really important. It's super cool. And again, just the choreography, the set pieces are really cool. The creativity as well. The creativity is so like it inspires you. Like who would think of this? This is literally just I'm taking all the knowledge and inspiration that I have of action movies and funneling into a movie about beings killing each other. It's so crazy that it works. It's awesome. I love it. And the only downsides that I have is that, like, obviously, since it's a one man job, or at the very least, one man job up to a certain point, I wouldn't be surprised if he got people to help him. It's limited, It's limited because it's so like it's hard to do it by yourself, you know. Like the set pieces, it's a city. It's literally Beantown, but there's nobody else except the police officers, the detective agency, and Killer Bean. There are no civilians except for the one bartender. Like, the city is devoid of any life. So it's hard to really think of this as a city instead of just a set piece for the characters to fight or talk. It's like, dang, I wish if more people were on this project that there was background characters and movement and cars, because then you can really get creative with those set pieces as well. It's just I get it. It's difficult because it's only a one man job to an extent. So I just like I wish that there was more. If there was a second movie, I know that there's like episodes on this channel, like Killer Bean episodes, like episode 1, 2, and there's a game as well. I hope that he makes a second movie and that they implement more life into the town because if if you're gonna set it in a town, having people there to make it feel like a town makes it more believable. Even though this movie's about Killer Bean killing everybody like he's Superman. it's crazy. But that's one gripe I have with it. But that's more like an understandable one. It's like it's a hope, if anything. Another gripe though, actually, is there's no woman in this movie. Like it's all men. Literally, the entire movie is just men, and it's just like that. There's no diversity in that. It's kind of boring. Like just I want to have diversity, even though I'm saying it's about a movie about beans. And I'm not saying that like have obligatory woman for no reason. I'm just saying like having that diversity makes it again more believable if this is a real world. Because why wouldn't you have a female hitman? That exists. Or just female characters in the police force, or with Cromwell and the detective agency. Like it could really it could be explained. It's not like it's impossible. I'm just thinking like why isn't there any? I didn't notice it in the beginning, but it's like having more characters like that could help out. Not forced, because I'm not saying it to force it in there, because forced diversity never works. You're putting an idea of a character that you don't know anything about. Do not force those characters. If the man didn't put him in because like he just he didn't have a need for female characters, it's like okay, that's fine. But I'm just saying like it's the diversity thing again. Having the world feel like it's a real world. How would there be only male beings in a world? How would beings be born? Like I don't know. It's just questions that come up when you look at things more like at an analytical lens, or not analytical, but you take a closer look at the world. Like, and obviously that takes the fun away from the world, but it's just that's the whole thing. You have this world like putting airtight solutions to these questions would make the world even better. Is what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to improve or like say like, oh, if I was on this project, I could do better. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just looking at it and just seeing suggestions that like I would say to him if I saw the movie and he was next to me. Or Jeff Liu, excuse me. That's the guy who I refer to as he. But overall though, like I enjoyed the movie. If you don't take it seriously, like in terms of what are these plot, all this stuff, blah blah blah, and just some of the way that the world exists. Like if you don't take that seriously, it's a fun movie no matter what. If you do take it seriously, some of the fun gets taken out, but that's the whole point of the movie. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be cool. It's supposed to be awesome. And it does a great job of doing that. So I don't know. You guys let me know what you think of it. Do you think my concerns or like my nitpicks and my criticism is warranted, or is it like lump it into don't take the movie too seriously? Because you can take it seriously and you can't, but I feel like if you take it seriously, that's more in a sense of like you're not poking fun at the movie, you're not like tearing it down saying like, oh, this isn't a good movie. It's more like you're invested into the Killer Bean world yourself, and you want to see these explanations. I don't know, but let me know down below. Let me know what you guys think about Killer Bean Forever. This movie is amazing. Please go watch it. I'll link it in my description. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me for now. Thank you all for watching. Go watch Killer Bean, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.